And we are live.
He's talking and then loud dude.
Yes, look at all of those happy faces. We had so many people here that came to Lisbon for our meetup that we partnered with Black in Portugal.
Oh, God.
And it was
Yeah.
just an amazing time,
It was
right?
fantastic.
Did you all see all of those happy faces?
Everybody had a great time.
Yes, yes. And a good portion of those folks were here and just kind of enveloped their scouting trip with our meetup because they're planning a move abroad. They're planning to make that exit.
I think so.
Yes.
Everybody I talked to pretty much said yes.
Yep. So,
but if you still need to, get rid of debt, which you do in order to move abroad,
you should.
Yeah, you should. And to save more money.
Yeah.
Gotta save more money.
Definitely. So if you still need to do that, there's still a way to leave faster. Maybe it's an opportunity to work abroad.
Yeah, because that saves on expenses a lot of times.
Yeah, and then you can meet your financial goal once you have lowered those expenses. So a work abroad opportunity may be the thing for you. So we're going to talk about that.
Yep.
All right. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Halisi.
And I'm Rick. Welcome to our Black Utopia.
On our channel, we talk about money, travel, and retiring abroad as we build generational wealth.
Wealth works.
So who is our special?
That sounded like my grandmother. Get your wealth.
Get your wealth together. So who's our special guest today?
Today we're going to be talking to Karla Frazier.
Yes. She is a expat career consultant and coach, and she has got a wealth of information. But first, if you are new to our channel, then let me tell you. About 6.5 years ago, Rick and I met with a financial advisor, and we left that meeting feeling grim. Well, he left that meeting feeling grim. I'm overly optimistic, which is not always a good thing because we looked at our finances. We were close to retirement age, and they look crazy. But within 3 years, we got our financial act together, and we went from negative 22,000 to over 800,000 in net worth, which now is over $1 million in net worth. And if we can do it,
you can do it too.
You can do it too. You certainly can. And
ain't nothing special about us.
No, Lord knows, no. So we are going to bring on our special guest. Hey, Karla.
Hey, Karla.
Hey, Lisa. Hey, Rick.
Good to see you. It's funny that you called me Lisa.
No. Oh, sorry. I didn't. Sorry.
That's okay.
My pronunciation was horrible.
So when I was a little kid, so I was born Lisa. And when I heard the name Halisi, I thought that Lisa sounded like a nickname for Halisi. Okay. So I asked my mom could I change my name to Halisi? And everyone else in our family was getting African names. I'm the first grandchild, so everyone under me has Swahili names. I am the only one that had to legally change my name from Lisa to
Ah,
Halisi. Yes. But so in kindergarten, I was registered as Halisi. But legally, I was still Lisa. And see, back in them
ah,
olden days, you could get away with that stuff.
right, right,
I'm like, Dad, why didn't you, when it was easy, because I had to get a background check and everything. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
when it was easy, why didn't you just change that? And he's like, no, that was the point, stick it to the man. We do what we want. I was like, well, now I'm getting stuck with these extra expenses and everything else.
right.
So anyway, why don't you
Sorry.
introduce yourself, because you can probably do it much better than we did.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Karla Fraser, and I'm a higher ed professional, and that's been my long 20-year career. And that propelled me into being a higher ed and an expat career coach and wanting to help folks move abroad using their career. And that's really my focus. If you want to work abroad and still use that passion, that's what I work with people about. I'm a third culture kid. I grew up between the Caribbean island of Jamaica and the United States. I've lived in 11 countries, worked in 7, love to travel. I'm a beach girl, so the fact that the beach is about 30 minutes away from me is a great thing. I'm in the Dominican Republic, and other things I like to read. I'm really big on higher education and purpose and, those kinds of things for our next generation and our youth.
I love it. I love
Yes.
it. So you are basically broadcasting in from the exotic Dominican Republic.
Yes, essentially.
And for those
I'll
of
be a little
you,
modest on that.
right? It's a hard life. And for those of you who don't know, we live in Lisbon, Portugal, and this is our new home, but we also have permanent residency in Mexico. So before we get to the career stuff, we definitely want to hear about all of those countries that you've lived in and worked in. But let's say hi to some folks who are in the audience. Hey, Auntie
Auntie Trey,
Trey, you
how
have
are
been
you?
waiting for a long time. Hey, Howard Worldview, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello,
Hello,
Latina
Latina Yogi.
Yogi. Yes. Actually,
Vanessa.
she's a Black Latina. I don't know which island she's from, but it seems to me you told us in one comment. Can't remember exactly where. Let us know. Hey, Vanessa, good to see
Hey
you.
Vanessa.
Hey, Rennie.
Michelle,
Michelle.
hello,
Hello,
hello.
hello. Hey, Greta.
Hey Greta.
We missed you
We
this
definitely
week.
missed you this week.
Right? So next time, Raquel, flying free. I love it. Yeah, it's that carefree life. Hey, Regina, Valerina, Alexandria MD, Jeanette is in the house, and Vicky, hey there,
Hey
Bernard
Vicky.
Lewis, Francis, Maria, my stethoscope travels. Some folks have just such interesting
I
names,
know I love them.
right? Kareen, good to see you.
The
Purple
purple tulip.
Tulip, good to see you. Kay and Barbara and Kendall, the Brazil show. That's new.
Yeah?
Boa tarde,
Both are.
from Brazil. I'm probably not saying that right, but the Brazilian Portuguese accent is easier to understand to me than these Lisboians. Girlfriend, sister girl is struggling.
We working on it.
We struggling up in here. Hey Venus. Hey Joy. Hey Phyllis. Good to see you.
Hey Phil.
Yay!
Hey, you made it back.
Yes, Jeanette. Hey family. Hello, hello, hello to everyone. We love you guys. We're so happy that you're here. So let's talk about all of the different countries you have lived in and worked in, and then we'll get into what folks need to think about when it comes
Wow.
to working
Okay.
abroad or working abroad.
So, so childhood, I lived between Jamaica and the US. And then my first job was abroad in the United Arab Emirates. And from there, I came back home, repatriated for 2 years. And then since 2012, I've moved out and I haven't come back. So that started with living in Afghanistan. Then I went to Dominica, the Commonwealth of Dominica, Singapore. When I left Singapore, I took a career sabbatical and hopped between Malaysia and Indonesia while I built Rosapple Global. And then since then, I've lived in Bangladesh, I've lived in Niger, West Africa, and
Wow.
I'm now in the DR, where I'm on another career sabbatical, and building the company on both sides, both the expat coaching side as well as the higher ed consulting side. Plus a couple other minor things in there, some digital products on
Okay.
Etsy.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're going
Yeah.
to put her links are in the description below if you want to get in touch with her and everything like that. We will also put them in the chat as we go along. We've got some new folks in the house, and I've been flashing them on the screen. We love you guys.
Yeah.
I've been binge watching Black Utopia, if you so consider. We're in Portugal from the northwest suburbs of Chicago.
Chicago.
Andrew, you
Woo,
can do it.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Right, there you go. You can do it. I mean, so you've lived in some very exotic places and some places that are not usually on people's lists.
True.
So if someone were considering moving to a place that has a very, very, very different culture, so Afghanistan,
No, we'll take that one off the list.
Okay.
Bangladesh,
That wasn't easy.
Because Afghanistan is in turmoil at the moment.
Right.
Bangladesh, South Asia, not very common on people's lists. However, what is common in your closet is clothes made in Bangladesh.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of clothing, a lot of the major brands have clothing manufactured in Bangladesh. It is an up and coming country, as in an emerging country. And so it is in the middle of infrastructure building and development and a lot of it. It's an emerging country. And what people don't realize is that sometimes emerging countries are great places to go because there's a huge amount of opportunity there for your skill set, your knowledge, your expertise to be used and be, transference of knowledge.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So for the folks who are new, and then all of our family in the chat right now, down below is a link to the Ready to Retire Toolkit. And I bring that up because people are like, Bangladesh, well, what about this? What about that? And what about this? And what about that? We use a database that tracks a lot of things, the Peace Index, and racial equity, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, the healthcare quality, as well as the costs. So the links to those databases are in our Ready to Retire Toolkit, which you can find down below. And then if Bangladesh is like, wow, that sounds interesting, I'm ready for a new adventure, then you can start looking up those things to see if they check enough boxes for you to go to the next step.
Mm-hmm.
Because, just picking up and saying, I'm out, like, I suppose if you're 22, that's what a 22-year-old would do. But when you grown and and the majority of our audience is over the 40 and over, that's grown. You 30-year-olds, you're as young as our kids. We love you, but you're young. So, but still, depending upon where you are in your life, we know 30-year-olds that have kids that are well into their tweens and teens and things like that. So there's a lot to consider before you just pick up and move. And so before we get to the work part, what are some things that folks should consider when they're considering places where, like Western Europe, in my opinion, is easy. It's so like the US in so many ways, right? But religions and everything else, and the letters are the same. So I can read the signs. I can't read the language, but I can read the signs.
Right.
So, but it could have a different alphabet, different characters, and all of that stuff. What are the things that they should consider before, like, picking up and saying, I'm they accepted me, I'm going to do this job?
So I I would even go back before that a little bit. I think one of the key things to think about is one, your purpose for moving abroad. In this case, it's a career change. What does that career look like? Is that career advancement? Is it just a different career? Is it a pay it forward opportunity? Because sometimes we want to get into those spaces where we're at the top of our career, the peak of our career, and we want to pay it forward in a different society, in a different country, things like that. So figure out what's your purpose. Figure out what are your values. We all have values and beliefs. Write them down. Make sure they match up to that country that you're wanting to go work in. The other piece, geography. Now, Bangladesh and South Asia is not for everyone. Western Europe is not for everyone. Southern Africa is not for everyone. So figure out what geographical region really matches up with who you are and start there. Now, I would also say open your mind to other places that aren't on your list. And I think those are key things to start with before you say, okay, I'm going to start that job search. And then that job search looks different. I tell people all the time, if you're coming from North America, some parts of Europe, some of the questions you may get asked, you'll do this. You can't ask me that. That's a legal question. No, it's not. Not within their culture or context.
Yeah.
So asking you if you are married and have kids when you're going to a country that's hiring you, they're providing you housing, they want to know if you're bringing a husband or a spouse, a partner, if you're bringing children, how many children? Because if they're providing you housing, they need to acquire the type of housing that will fit your family size.
Right.
And
Simple as that.
Understand that kind of context and not have the negative reaction to, why are you asking me if I'm married?
Yeah.
Age is another one. Many countries do have a ceiling on age, so they may ask you that, and that may trigger how they hire you, and when they can hire you. So I'll just stop right there to add a few tips.
Okay. So I heard purpose, values, and be open. So what for the places that you've lived where the culture is very different from Western culture, what was your biggest surprise? And you can tell us a negative surprise. Everybody already, Americans at least, already have negative connotations in their mind. Oh, they're all in lean-tos with mud roads and, no internet and all that stuff. Like, we've got all the propaganda. So what surprised you? Were like, ooh, maybe something that you didn't even know that you liked or whatever. Can you think of something?
So contextually, I've lived and worked in 4 Islamic countries. All 4 of them are different. Okay. And so that's the other thing to think about. Your countries may be in West Africa. There are going to be 4 different West African countries, different contexts, Anglophone, Francophone, things of that nature. I think my biggest surprise was Niger, West Africa. As a country, one of the Islamic countries I've lived in, the fact that it was very French, because it's a former French colony,
right?
And I didn't realize how much that was ingrained into the culture. I'm from an Anglophone, and I came from an English colony, but sometimes you're just surprised. I mean, the local baguette on the corner of the street was the equivalent of 25 cents. And that was a very good baguette, and it became my favorite thing to eat.
That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly. In contrast to the UAE 15 years ago when I was there, so let me contextualize that. When I first moved there, I could walk into the grocery store in Niger and purchase alcohol off the register in the supermarket. In the UAE 15 years ago, and to a greater extent still now, you have to go to a specific liquor store to buy alcohol. So just a different contrast. For me, I don't think many things surprise me in countries. I think it's because of my open nature and the places where I've lived.
Okay. And so that brings something up then, because of my nature. So it does take a certain personality type, then it sounds like, or I I think it has to be someone who is willing to walk through their fear to do the thing, right? Because we get people in the comments like, oh, I can't imagine leaving the USA, because at least we know what's going on here. Yeah, they're killing us. Um, Before they will venture even to Portugal, Portugal. It's not like
Right.
Bangladesh, which, do I even understand what the food is? What are we eating here? Although I had Bangladeshi neighbors, so I know the food and it's good.
Yes.
but, had I not, I would not have necessarily known that, the food is good. And so there needs to be certain personality types to consider this thing. So go
Mhm.
ahead.
I would agree. And I think part of that personality is what's your purpose? If you figure out your purpose, then you figure out the personality you are and where that fits geographically. Not everyone can go to West Africa, but you may go to the Caribbean because it's closer to home. You may
Right.
go to Germany because they have a close tie with the country, the United States, if you're from the US. You may go to Mexico because it's just down the street,
Right.
theoretically speaking.
It is, if you're in San Diego, it is down the street.
Right. So again, figuring out who you are figures out whether or not you can move abroad in general, but then figuring out, are you able to amalgamate, integrate, and work in a different work setting? Because that's what taking your career abroad is. It's working in a different work setting that is different than the one you're familiar with. You may be using the same skills,
Right.
Right.
the same knowledge. And by the way, till now, having a US degree, bachelor's, master's, PhDs are well regarded across the world. And so your knowledge, your skill, your experience, your degrees in some places are highly coveted. But are you willing to make that transformation to work in a different setting, different than yours?
When you consult with folks, have you seen like a pattern with the questions or concerns?
Yes, they vary. So it's typically, does my job exist abroad?
Hmm.
So what I say to folks is, if you're an accountant in the US, you can find accountants anywhere else
Right.
in the world. So your job will always exist.
Yeah, that's an
Your
interesting question. Like, I never would have thought of that piece.
But contextually, what I'm hearing them say is it the same experience? Is it the same type of work? Um, Being an accountant in the US, we're a CPA, you know, it's a chartered accountant in the UK and many other, the European system has translated. So
Right.
philosophies may be different. Architecture, how we build buildings in one country and how we build buildings in another
Yes.
country may be different. So you may have to learn that country's building code. Can you do that? Yes. The materials may be different. You know, a lot of on the continent in South Asia, you may be building with cement blocks where you're used to using brick in the US and Canada and some parts of Europe. So it's there's a learning curve
Right.
that you may have. And so I hear that sometimes.
And then we're going to get to some questions, y'all. So as you see, put a Q in front of your question. Um, I might see it if you don't, but there is no guarantee. our family likes to talk amongst each other and help each other out. So I know that there's a lot of chatter in the chat, which we love, love,
We
love.
love that.
But I also want to make sure that we're answering your questions. And so I'm going to go, hey, tall boy, I'm going to go back, because I saw one early on.
Okay.
But pay wise, where did I see that? Hey, Professor Tunisia, where did I see it? Doggone it. Oh, heck. And it was somebody who was new too. I'm sorry, y'all. It's, I can't read and talk and do all of this stuff. It's really hard.
No worries. Well, let me
Okay.
answer a general question around pay. So coming from higher education, I have found that two big things for me. One, I love career advancement abroad. So sometimes, you can't get promoted, you know, your next position abroad could easily be a promotion. So that's one piece.
Okay.
Two, that promotion could come with a contract that provides you equal pay. One of the things I do get, back to your original question, is, well, the salary is less than what I get in the United States. And I said, okay, what are the other pieces in the contract? Do they pay for housing? Do they pay for your car? Do they pay for your children, if you have children going to school, and your children's tuition or part of your children's tuition? Do you realize that, again, because I'm from the US, but other countries have similar policies? Like in the US, at some point, you meet the tax status, and I'm not a tax accountant, so please find one and make sure they give you all the right proper information. But at some point, your salary can become tax free. It may be tax free in the US and tax free in the country that you're in. Or the taxes in the country you're in are less than the taxes that you would pay elsewhere.
Yeah.
So there's lots of other benefits. The cost of living could be less. So then you have more disposable income. So while the literal figure on paper, salary wise, may look smaller, what are the things are you not paying for? Do you have a more comprehensive health plan that you're not paying for?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these are those things that are out of your pocket and into the pocket of your employer in many cases, or the system, the government, depending on the system and the type of visa you have and things of that nature. And so technically that salary is actually bigger.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah, and just to add an exclamation point to that, so one of the friends of the show, Adelia Borchade of Picky Girl Travels the World. If you don't know who she is, go check her out.
Mm-hmm.
She was a public school teacher in the United States, and then she took that teaching, those teaching skills, and not that teaching is the only thing that you can do abroad. There's other things, and we'll get to it. But her first job out of the country was in Honduras, I believe. And I'm trying to remember her story, y'all. The important parts I remember. And that is she made less money on paper. But because the cost of living was so much lower, and of course she got free tuition for her child because she was at an international school. Her child went there, free of tuition. So she was able to save 50% or so of her income, save and invest, and she was able to retire early. So she retired before the age of like 41 or 42 years old. Like, come on now.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, y'all.
Yeah.
Right? As a public school teacher, but she saved so much money teaching abroad that she was able to save enough to FIRE at a young age. So for those of you who don't know, FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. If you need more information, get the Ready to Retire Toolkit below. Okay, so Greta asks, if you decide to abroad in Lisbon, would you apply for the digital nomad visa or D7? No, Greta. So it just depends. Like if we're talking about jobs abroad, so we're not necessarily talking about working for an American company somewhere, wherever you want to, right? So in that case, it wouldn't be a D7 visa and it would not be a digital nomad visa. It would be another visa, like a D4 or something like that. Watch that other video that I did, girl, because I don't have all this stuff memorized. But the one that I said golden visa is gone. Now what? Right? That's the one that we went over all of the visas. However, Greta, if you come here if you qualify for a D7 visa and you qualify, once you get your residency card, you can still work.
You can still work.
So you can work here on a D7 visa, but that's not, if you're coming here to work for a Portuguese company, that's not the visa.
Okay. Let me tackle that for a little bit and talk about immigration. So if you are employed by an organization, in many cases, that organization is the one that's going to take you through your visa process. They will know what visa they need to apply for through the government to get you here for the position they've hired you. They would have in advance looked all that up and know when they publish the position, whether or not they can do sponsorship or not. And they would then help you through that sponsorship opportunity. In many cases, they will pay for that sponsorship. In some cases, you may have to contribute to the sponsorship of your visa. But it depends on the company, it depends on the opportunity. Depending on the country, some of those sponsorship visas can lead to permanent residency after a length of time. So again, when it comes to immigration, if you're being hired by, whether it's in the education system or corporate system, even the governmental NGO systems, they will help you through that process because they're hiring you into the country, and it's part of their responsibility to make sure you have all the visa and immigration paperwork done and processed.
So that's the nice part about if you come and you actually work for a foreign company, or it could be an American company with a satellite here, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
They do all of that paperwork and stuff for you. You don't have to DIY it. And, you get a little spoiled because we've heard some stories. We have heard some stories. Have you helped consult with cleared workers people? Do you know what that is?
I'm not familiar. If I can get a larger context, that would be helpful. It's not a terminology I'm familiar with. So
yeah. Sometimes welcome everyone to Lisbon area. Hey, Adventures in Lucy and D, take on the world. Okay. I've got more questions if y'all don't, but I did see some. Okay, let me get past the hellos and all of this stuff. Here we go. How do you choose your next destination? Where do you anticipate your next landing? Oh, personal question.
Oh, I choose my destinations based on my purpose and passion, which is education, specifically higher education. I don't know where I will land next. That all depends on, I'm kind of ready to go back on a university campus, but it will be global, somewhere in
Lisbon, did you say? Somewhere in Lisbon?
Who knows? I don't know yet. It just depends on the opportunities that are open in higher education. And that will be wherever I land my next opportunity. My destinations are really focused around being able to embark on youth development, particularly in emerging countries. That's my preference. But I've also worked in places like Singapore. So yeah.
You were breaking up a little bit. So Can you repeat that? What was your you said something about emerging countries.
Okay.
But
I prefer to work with emerging countries and their education systems as they're growing, adapting. And I'm really focused on South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the continent of Africa, because those three regions will have the youngest youth populations the next 10 to 15, 20 years.
Okay. So, That sounds like that's one of your passions then.
It is.
One of my passions is laying on the beach. And that's my purpose. I don't know. Like maybe there's not a job for me.
I think Nelson Mandela got in my ears with that statement, education is a weapon. And so I'm trying to, help our youth.
Okay.
So, well, yeah, and it is, and some countries use it to as a control mechanism and to indoctrinate.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of systems in the U.S. are like that. In state systems like public elementary school and so on, right? When we have states that are trying to take slavery out of the
Not
books,
trying to change your history books.
trying to change history because
Erase it.
Right.
God forbid we take responsibility for the world that we find ourselves in.
Right.
Obviously, education can be a weapon.
Yes.
I wonder if
it's
salary
on both sides.
It's on both sides, yes, positive and negative. I wonder if salary is lower, you still have a cost of living or other benefits that still leave you better off. So yeah, Jeanette, right? Exactly. Trade-offs. Exactly. As I was saying with Adelia, and she's just an example that what Karla says is true, that the salary could be lower, but your living expenses can be so low based upon other bennies, or just the fact that they have a lower cost of living where you're still saving a lot of money, paying off that debt that you need to pay off, and then saving more money so that you can stop working forever. One life, y'all. We get one life. And this is not a dress rehearsal. So the idea that we work and have all of our time taken up with work forever, just get rid of that. Get rid of that. It's going to look a lot different. Like, I suppose, some people consider YouTube work. And though we take it seriously because we want to bring good content, we're having fun. This was our dream. This was our dream to retire and do film. So this is 2023's version of it.
There we go.
Being in higher education, can you advise on possibilities of post-grad degrees abroad and funding? I'm considering this as a pathway to living abroad and don't quite know where to start.
Awesome way to live abroad. It's a great pathway. Getting that master's or PhD is a great way to live abroad. I would say most people tend to hit Europe just because the European system has a lot of options that tend to be less costly. And if you ever choose to return to the US for any reason, they're more recognized and accepted back into the system. So there's that piece to consider.
Yeah.
So, pathways in Germany, the UK, Spain, Portugal are great ways to consider. That doesn't mean that there aren't other places. I would say somewhere like where I work, the National University of Singapore, well-known research institution in Southeast Asia, constantly ranked, constantly breaking barriers is also, a place. So it's a matter of doing some research. And while it's not my specialty, I have on a case-by-case basis work with folks in regards to trying to at least start their pathway and get them navigated.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 weeks ago, High Vibes, we interviewed someone who's here who is a grown adult who is here on her student visa, and the student visa that Portugal offers allows them to bring in their spouse or partner as well as their children. So she brought her son with her, and he's here living his best life in Lisbon, Portugal. Not that Lisbon is the only place in Portugal you can live your best life. You live your best life wherever you feel you can live your best life. They found that Lisbon, Portugal is where they wanted to land for now. And so, you can go on the immigration websites of each of the countries that you're interested in high vibe. And I know for Portugal, it's very spelled out what the criteria is. And basically, if you get accepted to a program, you got the visa.
Yeah.
And for Portugal, there's not really a lot of financial requirements like there is with the D7 and some of these other visas.
Mhm.
So, and as a matter of fact, it seems like there was a lady who came here during the pandemic on like a culinary arts. Like it wasn't a traditional school. It was more of a what we would call a technical school or something like that, right? And was able to come here on her student visa with that acceptance. So, so there are a lot of opportunities. So your main experience is in higher ed. What other kinds of careers have you coached for, or can you talk about what that looks like? Like, say I'm an IT person, because
Okay.
there's lots of IT people.
Sure. So I think one of the things, again, I look at foundation. So your purpose and geography will always be your foundation, regardless of your career. Your credential, updating your portfolio, internationalizing it is the next step. So making sure that the language, the lingo fits the region is important. And so while I may not be IT knowledgeable, one of the things is I teach you how to fish. So I'm going to work with your resume, your cover letter. You're going to help me understand the lingo, and make sure that I have you at the place where it fits Western Europe, it fits Southern Africa from a lingo perspective and what they're doing, where they are technology wise, and what you're looking for. I just met with a gentleman who is on vacation now, and when he gets back, we're looking to work together. He's in the telecom space, and so we were talking a little bit about what does telecom look like, and where he wants to consider going. Simply because infrastructure in the telecommunications field is huge. People are trying to put in 5G all over the world. People
Right,
are trying to
right.
update their grids from 1970. He's valuable. He can teach youth. And when it comes to youth development, and this is the education side of me coming out, going to a 2-year technical program in telecom gets you into the job market sooner than if you go and get a 4-year degree. And
Right.
that is part of the youth development that's needed globally. And so he and I are going to look at talking about not just working with telecom companies, but also looking at, can he teach at one of the technical schools, to be able to help some youth development pieces. So again, no matter what your career is, you can find something that is either equivalent or adjacent. So whether that's IT, accounting, medical field is a little bit different because there's lots of board exams and things of that nature. So it's about navigating the right country to be able to use your medical nursing skills. However, being like a travel nurse, which you're still using your career, you're just doing it independently as an entrepreneur, are an option that you could consider.
Interesting. So Singapore, that's on my list.
Yes.
Just I'm not gonna even give myself away to tell you how nerdy I am, or but I know it's crazy expensive.
It was, yes. One of my best places to live, though. Enjoyed it lots.
I need to experience that, right? You
Yeah,
down?
we both do. Yeah.
Yes.
I want to go to Vietnam after we watched that movie.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
definitely. So I'm a tall boy says when I play professional sports, when I played in Turkey, the salary was low, but they covered everything from housing to my food and other small things. So I had a lot more disposable income.
Mhm.
There you go. There you go. What are the likelihood as an American getting a working visa in the UK? I would love to work in London.
That I don't know because I'm not in the immigration field per se. I know with the separation from the Schengen region, the UK has created its own immigration policies, and they're, from what I've read, their model is similar to the one like Canada's model, with the specialties and things of this nature. I'm not detailed, so I will just be transparent and say I usually look that up when I'm working with someone specifically to make sure that I'm pointing them in the right direction, because I don't have immigration expertise.
Right.
It is not impossible, but it's a process. And again, if you're working for Chase Manhattan, not that I'm getting any money from Chase, Chase is going to take care of you.
Right.
That's very different than if you're going into the education system. And this is the key thing about sponsorship. One of the things that I do with my clients when I work with them is I spend time teaching you how to read those job announcements that are posted, whether they're posted on the job board or whether they're posted on the company's website, to read through and find all the key things that you need to be paying attention to in this process. How to look for sponsorship, how to understand that DEI and EDI, for in the case of the UK, are actually the same thing. The letters are twisted, the words are the same.
See? And, and here in Portugal, they have the same kind of language that they have in the United States, right? The assumption is that the employer cannot find someone locally to fill this spot, and so they must bring someone in.
Right.
However, however, I know someone who is here on a work visa, and what she does is not specialized. It's not tech. It's like it's kind of nonprofity, and it's just not special. Like I know that they could have found someone. So I say that to say, try, because what's on paper and what it looks like in practice could be two different
Right.
things.
Skill, expertise, timing. So
Yes.
while it could have been timing. Like they put out a position in January and nobody wants to change jobs in January. So therefore they're able to hire a non-local and justify it, versus 2 months later, they may not have been able to. So I'm not saying it's luck. I'm just saying it's your skill, your time, your talent, timing, your network,
Yeah.
all those things put together.
Yeah. So if this is something that you're interested in, update your LinkedIn. Like make sure your LinkedIn is on point, because LinkedIn is one of the few social networks that really truly is a social network, and it's not being manipulated by some meta type person. So your people and your people's people will see the things that you like or they like that you have posted, et cetera, et cetera. And so your reach is further. Plus, I love, like when I was back in the job market, I love the fact that there's that 6 degrees of separation thing that they do, right? And so, well, you don't know Carla, but you know Rick, who knows Carla, and Rick can introduce you to Carla.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all, I used that. I would contact Rick and say, I need an intro.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because that's, you use everything that's at your disposal.
That is one of the things I work with my clients on. I said, your cover letter, your resume, your LinkedIn, your references. Those are your portfolio pieces that I work with you on. So, yes.
I love it. Are there any limitations working abroad if you are a professional in healthcare? You kind of talked about this. Oh, she's a pharmacist. Ooh, Regina, you went to school a long time. You're one of those smart cookies. Unlike me, I just get by. I am aware it is challenging for health professionals outside the U.S. to easily transition and to another system, is what I'm basically thinking she's saying.
I would say the pharmacy is probably on the more easily transferable end, because medicine, because of the the medical formulas change, but once you're able to understand them, I think that's easier to go from country to country. Whereas I think medical procedures and terminologies and things like that, I think may be different. I could be wrong. If there's an MD in the room, you can correct me. Um, but
Logically, that
healthcare
makes sense.
professionals can do that. I think sometimes what it may take is researching what it may take. So, does it take an entrance exam? Does it take a translation of your certifications from one country to another? Do you explore private hospitals versus public hospitals within the system of the country you're going to? Because sometimes the privates and the publics have different rules and regulations that govern them in each country and who they can hire. Are you a visiting specialist?
Right. Right. Okay. That loopholes, baby. Loopholes. So,
the other one is
surely,
training. Are you a training specialist? Are you coming in to train? I had a friend of mine who was from from the UK that came to Singapore to train and spent a couple years training the Singaporean staff on her specialty there. Not that it wasn't there, but they wanted to get up to a certain speed. So
right.
therefore they hire a training specialist or a training consultant to come in. So that's the other piece to think about.
Ooh. Yeah. See, there's so many angles. There are so many angles, and I think we have to be a lot more creative when we think about how our skills are transferable, right? Um, so Shirley asked, Carla, have you,
Hi,
have
Shirley.
you have you worked with people with security clearances?
No,
Does
I
that,
have
does that even transfer?
no. I have not worked with people with security clearances. However, security clearances will matter if you're going to work for, let's say, the US government, the Canadian
Right.
government, whatever
Mhm.
government
Right.
in a governmental role abroad. For example, you're going to work for the US embassy in Lisbon.
Right.
Then your clearance is then something that matters, that impacts. Having clearance can get you into opportunities that require sensitivity. So, some contractor work, some governmental work, things of that nature. But I also know that clearances also have specifications in some cases that you can't work for other countries and governments because of your clearance.
Right.
So be careful
Right.
unless you don't plan on going back.
So, again, depending on the level of your clearance and things of that nature, I think, it's not impossible. It's just a matter of what you want to do.
Yeah, a friend of ours who lives in Spain, if I'm not mistaken, works for a corporation that has a contract with our military. So I could see those public private partnerships. I know my dad had a security clearance. He didn't work for the government, but he worked for like Boeing. What are those kind of companies called? You know, that make
Aerospace.
aerospace.
Contractors.
Aerospace.
Okay, aerospace. Yeah.
Yeah, right, which have government contracts, right? And
Right.
so you have to have a level of security clearance. So I could see that transferring if it's still an American company or working with our government in some capacity.
Right.
So, Morpheus, thank you. Just subscribe.
All
Thank you.
right.
Thank you. Y'all, if you love this content, if you're thinking about moving abroad, if you want to figure out how to become financially independent, and like us, you started late, subscribe. It's never too late. It's never too late because if we can retire when we didn't think we could ever retire, y'all can do it too.
If this content helps you out, hit that thumbs up.
Yes.
Yep.
Spread the word.
I agree.
Question is an ETF. So ETF, the only one that I know is trading. Is that what you're talking about, Morpheus? What are we talking about here? And I love the name. So Ken asks, I work remotely now in St. Louis. I'm sorry, baby, but remote is good. What's the best way to approach the company I work for and explain a move to Portugal?
Hmm.
Good one. So, yes, if you currently work for a company, so the easiest way is if they have a branch campus or an affiliate or do work in Portugal. So, that's probably the
Or the
easiest,
EU, maybe.
or the EU, right? So, if they already have those kinds of connections, that's the easiest way to talk about that. Maybe there is a project that you can work on. I don't know what your remote work is specifically, but maybe you want to go and explore for them,
Mhm.
a startup. Maybe you want to go and see how your company can expand to that region or that country or that area. Thinking about developing a product. So that's one of the ways to consider that. Um,
Can
companies, go ahead.
can you repeat that last sentence because you broke up a little bit?
Okay, so one of the things you can do is explore what opportunities or what products or what new things your company could potentially put into a different country. And you could be the volunteer to go and do that exploration.
That's creative. So you're taking on your entrepreneurial spirit and saying, "Hey, I want to help this company grow, y'all, by sending me abroad."
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. If they
Yes.
have a training program,
Yeah.
let's say you work in a department and that department is based in Germany. And I'm going to pick on my aunt who's nowhere around, who works for a German based company. Like, she works in a department. And so, for example, if she needed training in that department sector, she could say, can I go to Germany for a couple months to train under the lead department?
Hmm.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
so that way you're showing them that, one, you're valued, invested in your career and your longevity with the company, and you want to go and gain insight knowledge from the source.
There you go.
So there's a variety of ways that you can think of that. You can ask for transfers if there's an office, if they're building an office. You can go be the training and leading consultant for an office. Um, there are companies that if they allow you to work remotely outside the country, some companies will, some companies won't.
Won't.
If they say yes, we'll allow you to do that, then this is where a digital nomad visa may be helpful, so that you don't get into any legal challenges, immigration issues abroad. Some of the reason why companies won't do that are insurance, because your insurance doesn't always cover you outside. The tax issue,
Taxes.
and how they work with your government's tax issues. And I try to be inclusive. While I come from a U.S. perspective, Canada, other places, their tax structures are different. And
Right.
so just figuring out the tax structure and how that may be applicable to you. So, if you're from the US, St. Louis, how does that play with the IRS? How does your company play with the IRS? Will determine whether or not they can allow you to be outside
Yeah.
from a tax structure.
Yeah.
So those are two of the biggest implications. Is usually taxes and insurance, why they won't let you move work remotely abroad. But
Yeah.
be creative in thinking about what is in the company that can get you abroad.
Yes. And in the short term, some companies will let you go to a place on a tourist visa because you don't become a tax resident in a lot of countries, just visiting for 3 months. If you watched our tax expert last week, and if you didn't, go back after this and watch. We had
Hmm.
Katrina on, who is an expert in expat taxes. So there could be some implications even like she was saying, if you're on vacation and you take your laptop with you because you have the one meeting that you have to be at, because some of these corporations won't let you go on vacation totally. So you zoom in to that one meeting. That meeting is considered foreign earned income. So if your tax person does not know, have them contact Katrina. Her information is in the description of the video that we did last week, because y'all, that was some deep stuff.
Yeah, that she brought up a whole lot of stuff that you just don't think about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot tell you, unfortunately, how many times I always take my computer with me, but how many times I had to do work. Like, I just have to, I'm looking for this one email because when it comes in, we got to sign that contract right away and boop, whatever.
That's
Whatever
called you
it
working
is.
abroad.
Exactly. Even though I was supposed to have my behind on vacation.
Yeah.
Like work-life balance, I don't think is a thing here. At 3:30, 4 o'clock, that park across the street is full.
It's full.
Of parents
kids
and their
parents.
kids. They're not doing goofy stuff like that. So Shirley meant government security clearance. So I think we already answered that. And so, do you work with people who hold clearances? And the answer would be yes. Yes.
Yes, I can guide. There are people that I guide, and there are people that I'm explicitly, work with, take you through the whole paces.
Okay, Michelle. So let me go ahead and put Karla's information in the chat. So what you need to do is go ahead and contact her so that you can figure out, okay, really, Halisi, so you can figure out how to make that happen. I just pasted it back in the private chat. Okay, so it is in the chat now. And now I've got to go back up and figure out where I was in the questions. Okay, I'm not that far behind. Okay, good.
Yeah. And so remember, there is both the K through 12 system and the higher ed system in every country. While I am not an expert in the K through 12 system, I do have a good friend that is, and can get you full knowledge on the K through 12 system and understand both the teaching and the administrative side. When it comes to higher ed, I'm your expert.
There you go. Da professor. Nixon. So I think you were here before. It seems like I remember the name. So remember, baby, you got to put a Q in front of it. I caught it because I'm kind of looking at everything. So I'm in U.S. in higher education now, about 17 years experience. How do I get into higher education overseas?
Let's have a conversation. But aside from that, the cycle of working in higher ed overseas is the process is very similar to what you may be accustomed to in the United States. The cycle is ongoing. They post jobs when they have them open. They don't wait. They will hire you in the middle of October. I can't tell you how many times I've started a job in the middle of October, moving abroad, moving from one school to the other. In higher education, remember, there are really 4 areas that you can go into: teaching, being a faculty member in the classroom; research, working on research projects, whether that's yours that will benefit the country or the countries that will benefit your background and your expertise; operations, working with facilities, and all those kinds of things; infrastructure; and then the last, administration. And that could be senior administration, anywhere from president on down in administration, but also academic administration and student affairs. I'm a student affairs administrator, and I have gone from basically, being a assistant dean when I first moved out, to being a vice president for student affairs, all during the time that I've been abroad. I've worked in academic advising. I have taught first year experience. I've been a policy developer. So you can work at established institutions abroad. So universities that have been there for decades, who are looking to grow and transform and change or add programs if you're on the academic side. I've worked at startups. Those are actually my favorite because I think I get to leave a bigger legacy, a little self-serving. But you leave a foundation when you are at a startup institution. So that's happening, and it's happening across the globe. Halisi, you mentioned Vietnam. Vietnam is one of those places that US style education schools are growing. And so again, Southeast Asia, the continent of Africa, but you can find schools in Europe. You can find schools in South America. They will hire you. In some cases, language will be a part that you need to have. In some cases, not. I have navigated working in 7 countries, including the United States, and my second language is basic Spanish.
Mine is Ebonics, so there you go.
My Spanish has gotten better since I've been here. You can find opportunities that are at bilingual schools or schools that are English speaking, and you have to, again, that adaptation, integration. You're in an office, and I had this. Everyone in the office spoke Arabic except me. Okay, my assistant spoke English and Arabic. I didn't worry about it. She was doing her job with me, making sure I understood everything. Everyone else was understanding what I was saying through her, and we got everything we needed to get done.
There you go. There you go. Yes. Best beaches in every country. I'm with that.
I can name you a few beach countries that you can work.
See, there you go. Monetize that relaxation model. That's my life. That's my life. Okay. So I wish I could totally disconnect from the US, but I'm tied to the government in many ways, veteran receiving benefits. So we have veterans who are here, Morpheus, who are receiving their benefits. And I don't know if they're going straight into their Portuguese bank account or if they're going into their American bank account and then they're transferring the money. But that doesn't sound like something that's going to hold you back. So
they're veterans here in the DR. See? I know 1 or 2 of them.
See? There you go. There you go. Okay, Renee wants to give you a compliment.
Oh, thank you, Renee.
Very helpful. Thank you, High Vibe. Okay, Monica, if you go abroad on one kind of visa based on having a US-based job, okay, like say digital nomad visa, can you then find a job with a company in the new country and convert to another visa, thinking about the Netherlands? Okay, neither one of us are immigration specialists. We know just enough to be dangerous. Very dangerous. Conceivably, yes. Conceivably, yes. Do you want to add to that?
I would agree with conceivably, yes. So if you, let's say, a tourist visa, an immigration visa, and you get hired while you are visiting the country, yes, again, the organization that hires you should be able to help you to then get into a sponsorship visa category and then move you through that process. Let's say you come in under already sponsored program. So let's say you come in working for company Y and they sponsored your visa. And let's say your contract was 3 years, standard contract in higher education is 3 years. But then at the end of that 3 years, you got a job company A. Then company A is then responsible to working with company Y to be able to navigate with the government to get a transfer of sponsorship from Y to A. And so it's possible. Sometimes it's a process, and it may take time.
Mhm.
And during that time, you may or may not have to leave the country.
Yeah.
So just just some nuances that you may have to go through when you are going through transitions from one type of visa to another.
Yeah.
Again, not an immigration specialist. This is general knowledge that I know, I've read about. You need the companies that you're working with, or the company that's hired you, their HR team or their immigration specialist to work with you, or to get an immigration specialist to help you navigate through what's on the government website of the country that you're considering.
Yeah. So, Monica, say you came here on a student visa, and then you wanted to transfer that visa to some other kind of visa, whether it be sponsorship or D7. What the unknown that I don't know, Monica, because there's not a huge financial requirement for the student visa, and there wouldn't be for a sponsored visa. So whether you would have to go home and apply in the home country, that's the unknown. And then some countries require an FBI background check. That can be done from abroad. You don't have, because we did it from Mexico, but you have to be able to receive it and then get it and then get it to
Mhm.
them. And so, will they only accept that in the home country? Some countries will let you apply from anywhere outside of the country.
Mhm.
You don't necessarily have to go to your home country to do it. Portugal, you have to go to your home country. Mexico, you do not, for instance. So there's those things to think about. So it depends on what kind of visa. And going from a tourist visa to like a digital nomad visa could be problematic. But a sponsored visa, the company has to worry about that. They want
Yeah.
you. Let them do what they know how to do. They've got people at the company that do this. So AI is taking a lot of jobs now. I've been hearing that, but I ain't convinced. But then,
The
I'm a
best thing
little
I've
old.
heard about AI is you're the driver, AI is the vehicle. I'm gonna leave it that way.
See, I can deal with that. It's when they want to drive too. Like I saw the movie.
I did too. I know what you're talking about.
I saw the movie, and I don't remember no black folks in the movie. So thank you, LG and LA. Hit that like button. I'm not trying to do that. Hey, Tanya. So now, okay, girl, you need to listen to this so we can get you up out of Long Beach, California. Snoop Dogg moved out. Time for you to move out.
There we go.
I'm the DODG. Okay. I have about 17 years of experience in higher education, STEM, and DEI. So that DEI, that's the one that you were saying in UK is the same thing, but some other letters or whatever.
So in DEI in the US is EDI in the UK.
Okay. And I think we had already answered the rest of that question. So Costa Rica doesn't hire non-residents. I'm an artist and in nature foods, etc. I know I can do things virtually. What should I do? You should book a consulting call with me to do your side hustle, make your side hustle into your main hustle.
I was
That's what
going to
you can
say.
do. And that information is below.
Yeah, I was going to say
Um,
create your own.
Yeah, create your own. Artists, the sky is the limit. The sky is the limit, Levitate. So but because it takes a minute that's why I named this Leave ASAP. So for instance, we do YouTube. We love YouTube. But a couple of $100 a month is not going to pay it's not going to pay the bills, right? And it takes a while to ramp up. So what we did is we saved up 2 years living expenses in addition to all of the money that we had in our retirement accounts, our 401ks, our IRAs, and all of that stuff. Okay. So either you ramp up your side hustle Levitate in the United States so that by the time you get to Costa Rica, it is providing you with enough income to make that happen, to make your life happen, or you save up those 2 years living expenses so that you can have some of the ramp time there in Costa Rica. And hopefully Costa Rica is not a lot less expensive than some parts of the United States, but it is less expensive in some regard. It's not Mexico.
Yeah.
It's definitely not Mexico. You
I
have anything to
concur
add to
with
that?
that. I concur with that. So I've taken a career sabbatical. And so when I left Singapore, I had money saved up for a 1-year career sabbatical. And I knew what that was going to cost me going between Malaysia and Indonesia during that time. And I chose a different path. I chose to stay in, hotels during that entire time for my own convenience and traveling as a single woman and some of those kinds of pieces. Not that, I went to between Malaysia and Indonesia the whole time I lived in Singapore, but that was just my choice. So finding low cost, high end hotels to stay in and things of that nature. But I had money saved up that took care of my expenses. So that is an important piece. And so that's what I did for my career sabbatical, came out of my career sabbatical and back into a full-time position. Did the same thing in order to do my career sabbatical here in the DR when I first got here, saved up, and then get back fully into my business. And so then my business is generating a good part of my income here while I'm here.
There you go.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. Tanuki, welcome. You stumbled across our channel. What are we talking about today? We're talking about getting out of Dodge. No, we're talking about how you can take your skill set and transfer it to a job or career abroad so that you can live your best life. If you dream of visiting other places, if coupled with that, you tired of the US, but really it's not. I caution about running away from something more than running to something, right? You want to definitely be running to something. And for Rick and I, it was running to a place that was close to other places that we wanted to live, getting to a place that had lots of beaches and no snow and all of that. And no snow, no snow blowers necessary. A more laid back life that in a place where we could feel safe. And that was less expensive. That's what we were running to. Yes, we were running from the snow, but we were also running from lethal racism. So we are talking about taking your show on the road and using your skill set to work abroad. Hit that like button, baby. Okay. Yes, that's exactly what I was advised by my company. There are tax ramification issues from working remotely abroad. Yep. Absolutely. So I have put her link to get in touch with her in the chat. For those who joined us late, they're not going to see it. I will put it in again, but it is also in the description below. Okay. Question. Do you recommend having a travel router or VPN while working abroad remotely? Hey, C-Temp.
So yes, I recommend having a VPN, specifically if you're going to do some personal business. Here's the thing. A VPN may not save you from your company abroad, by the way. They can get around that. They can figure out if you are on the beach in Bali when you're supposed to be in the office in California. Your home
Probably from your IG. Here I am, hashtag soft life.
Yeah, that doesn't help at all.
So just realize that companies can find out and figure out if you are outside the country when you're not supposed to be, and you're working from outside the company when you're working remote. And that can lead to all kinds of consequences.
Yes.
So you need to consider that.
Yes.
So I would never recommend you doing that without having full authorization from your company to do that.
Yeah. It's just not even worth it, y'all. And for the most part, the majority of the folks who are watching this channel, I'm sure, have the skill set to find something else, that will allow you to either work remotely in outside of the country because they've got some kind of satellite office or something abroad, or just find another job. So, okay, so Tanuki, you like Switzerland. Yes, definitely very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
What are the limitations of COVID-19 USA restrictions? Are Portugal planning to lift?
We don't have any COVID restrictions.
There's no more COVID restrictions, babe. But we
unless you know something we don't.
Yeah, no. For right now, it is okay. And okay, put a Q in front of your question.
And I'm not going to get into the whole scenario, but one of the things, I've been working with a study abroad company, and most of my study abroad students are in Europe. And one of the things I've spent a lot of time educating parents over the past year is that US laws, regulations, restrictions do not apply to another sovereign nation. So I would say to a parent, and I understand that the US regulation says quarantine for 5 days and your son or daughter is in X country in Europe, does quarantine for 7 days. That, they would argue that's not fair. Because that country's sovereign law and the equivalent of their CDC says 7 days. They don't live by ours. So that's another thing to realize, is that the laws of certain nations apply to those nations. And so whether that's immigration, whether that's taxes, whether that's healthcare, that's the thing to consider. I tell people all the time, you have to change your mindset. I know you've been used to Canada, the US, Mexico, Germany, wherever you're coming from, your set of laws. But if you're choosing to make this leap, realize that the laws in the country that you're going to are different. And that you need to abide, learn, make friends with locals who can help you understand.
Yes. Yes. And so a lot of times what you will find is my not so humble opinion is that a lot of the common sense laws make more sense. And you can see it evidence, like here in Portugal, things, even the Doritos have less salt. Now, I love me some salt, but their version of the FDA says that no, you cannot have the amount of salt that they're poisoning Americans with. Right?
Just like somebody was talking about, I can't remember who it is offhand, but bringing creamer, thinking about bringing creamer of half and half. Can't do that.
No. Half and half is not a thing over here, and it's still breaking Rick's heart.
It does, but I use evaporated milk.
And it works.
KB
asked, after your sabbatical, how long did it take you to rejoin the workforce? How did your sabbatical change the trajectory of your personal and professional life? Very good. Stephanie Roshida-esque question.
So my sabbatical was roughly 10 months. Didn't go a full year. I was job searching during my sabbatical, towards the end of my sabbatical, as I was building Rosappa Global, my company. So my sabbatical was in 2019, and it took me about 2.5 months to find my next job. And I started to robustly search and landed my next position in January 2020. and moved into that position into a new country. And so it changed personally and professionally. I think it allowed me to think that I can do another sabbatical, which is on now. So I think that's the big piece. Professionally, it allowed me to, I think, hone in on what I wanted to do with my business professionally, what sides of the business I wanted to develop. So I started the business with coaching, and so the expat career coaching piece, and then moved into the consulting side, which is what I'm doing right now with a client.
Oh.
Then the digital products on our Etsy store. So yes.
You're breaking up, but I heard that it allowed you time to develop your Etsy store.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I missed what you said right before that.
To build the consulting side of the house.
Consulting.
So I do a higher ed consulting for student affairs units to help develop, grow, and then
cool.
And then I also built the Etsy store that has lots of self-care products, affirmations, move abroad, tools that you need for this process, and then continue the coaching.
Let's see, you didn't put your Etsy link in there.
I can send that to you.
Okay, very good, because we like to buy stuff.
You like to buy stuff?
Well, kind of.
No, you don't buy stuff.
I don't buy stuff, but stuff that I can use. And I always need a good journal. Although, that Rocket book. Have you heard of this thing? This Rocket book thing? The reusable notebook? It's like pen and paper meet digital.
Oh.
And yeah, it's called the Rocket book. And you can write in it, you can erase it, but then you can also send your notes to the cloud and have them labeled.
That's awesome.
My Spanish tutor told me about it. I'm going to take you out of it and add you back in and see if that helps our connection here. And then we can answer this next question. Okay. So speaking your future into existence, solo mom travel. Hello. Look, we are here today as opposed to 2 years from now because I was visualizing and manifesting and speaking it into existence. I had a what are those cards called? Index card on our mirror that said, I am so grateful that Rick and I are living abroad and are financially independent. And a year later, here we are. So yes, what website do you recommend looking into or on to apply for international jobs? I'm in Mexico for 6 months with my 4 kids and in college online. Congratulations for all of that. I would like a job that could sponsor my family's visa.
Okay. So websites vary based on your career field and what you're looking for, the countries you're looking for, the region. So, if you're looking in the Middle East, that's a different set of websites than if you're looking in, let's say, the Schengen region. Even because the Schengen region and the UK are now separated, the UK websites have been, they're a little bit, they're not as connected as much. So based on your jobs and based on the area of expertise that you're in, will look differently for the places you look. But start with a Google search on searching your job title, or your aspirational job title, and use the country behind it. And that will start to bring up sites that may have that. LinkedIn is a good source. We've already talked about that.
Yes.
So LinkedIn is global. It has global opportunities, global recruiters. So just make sure that that's part of your search as well.
LinkedIn is the bomb. It really is. Although it does not like YouTube Live. And my descriptions obviously are always too long. So Ernestine, hello, hello, hello. How do
Hello.
you know how much it costs to live in another country? So in our Ready to Retire toolkit listed below, there are links to 2 databases that we use to find the cost of living for, I can't say every single city on the planet, but at least the cities you've probably heard of and a lot that you haven't heard of. So it's not going to have probably some small village with 250 people,
No.
but any city of a certain size, it will have a cost of living there. And yes, for Spain, for France, for Italy, for Greece, and for places in South America, Oceania, Africa, etc. Um, if only income is Social Security. Yeah. So Ernestine, we just put out a video.
Yeah.
8 places to retire for $1,500 or less. And then check out our cost of living video that we did for our life here in Lisbon, because we're really only living off of what he brings in Social Security. So that the 2 years living expenses plus all the money in the retirement accounts stays put.
We haven't touched it.
Right? Exactly. So that's what you can do. So that information, the Ready to Retire Toolkit link is below. Okay, Google what the cost of living is. Yep. Google works.
Crikey.
So one of the quick things, depending on where you are in the process, if you hop over to the Etsy store, which I think the link we can share, I have 2 planners out there. One's called Take Your Career Abroad. So it gets you starting to think about what that would look like. And so for a couple bucks, you can buy it. It's digital, it's downloadable, and it'll ask some questions, get you thinking. And then the other one's just a straight, just a general plan for a move abroad. Plus, you'll find other things on there to be inspirational, like some travel quotes and things of that nature. There's a move abroad vision board. Vision is important, and so again, start to put those things on the vision board that you think is important. So I think you may not be ready to jump in, but you can be ready to start planning.
Absolutely. And I just put that link in the description below. So LLQ says, please note that for most countries, you will have to arrive with a job, digital nomads, or teaching online, because that country will not allow you as an immigrant to take jobs away from locals. So for the most part, he is correct, but there are some nuances.
Or she is correct.
Or she is correct. Sorry, baby. There are some nuances. For instance, okay, there's where I was. Here in Portugal, you can come on a D7 visa. A D7 visa are for folks with passive income or a pension. And once you get your green card, you can work. So I only know one person who is, and she didn't necessarily take a job away from anyone, because she was brought in for American English. So there you go. How easy can it get? Can you speak American English? Yes, you got the job.
Right.
So yeah, Greta, the link for that is in our Ready to Retire toolkit. And I visited, let's see, Jeanette. I visited family in Germany and ate from the bakery every morning. Bread around the world is amazing. Girl, I've gained so much weight.
Right?
These Lisbon hills are not helping me lose this weight. So
Wait
hey,
a
Pappy.
minute.
What?
You told me it was.
No, it's helping me from gaining more weight.
Okay.
There's a difference.
There's a difference. Like it could be worse, right? It could be worse. Okay, so the professor knows about Rocketbook.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look that up.
Yes. Okay, I think we did it. I don't see any more questions. I do not see any more questions.
Awesome.
I'm looking to go back to my home country of Jamaica. Somebody else here is from Jamaica. It is home. I think that America and the West are sinking ships. I am looking for a remote position so that I can save up to leave. Great human, hidden beauty. Great, 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 great.
Here's a question for that person, or here's a comment. While you're doing that, if you said going back home, so I would also say look into the possibility of getting dual citizenship because that can give you an advantage.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And actually do that sooner than later since Jamaica is deciding to become a republic soon.
Oh, interesting. Okay. From one Jamaican to another. So hidden beauty, here is the thing. So we live here in Portugal, and although Black folks are not in the majority, there's a lot of us here, at least in the city. A lot. You might be surprised, and like we said before, so we blend here in Lisbon, Portugal. But there is, and look, racism is everywhere. It's everywhere. We're not going to act like it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Even on the continent, we get some bigotry because they don't know what tribe we're from and we're all mixed up. And oh, Pam just ordered. Great, Pam. And so we're just American. We're not their brothers and sisters, right? And so understanding that, what I want is for everyone to find their joy where they find their joy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so for us today, it is in Lisbon, Portugal, where we blend in. When we walk up to the local mom and pop, they start speaking Portuguese to us because there's tons of Black Portuguese that have been here as long as we've been in the United States, not to even consider all of the folks who've moved here from Brazil, from Mozambique, from Angola and Cape Verde. So you can find Black hair care products. You can find people to cut your hair who know what they're doing. Black people to give weaves and braids and blowouts, and all of that exists here. So, so Hidden Beauty says, thanks for, both parents were born in Jamaica. So yeah, I would do that. Choices, y'all. Choices.
Yeah, give yourself choices.
Okay, so we have done it, and great, at an hour 30 minutes. This is good for us. This is good. So I want to leave you with this. If you have more questions, we have just spent the last 90 minutes talking about how you can leave sooner than later if your holdup is the money. If your holdup is the money and you still need to work, why not work someplace else outside of the United States where you can sit at the park without a Karen calling the police? You can hang out in Starbucks without anybody calling the police, right? All of that stuff. And then you can experience a new culture, learn a new language, have a new adventure. We're having the time of our lives, and we want you to have that as well. So I'm sure that you have more questions. If you do, Karla's information is in the description below. It's also in the chat. If you have more questions about moving abroad, about Portugal, about creating a side hustle, our information to book a call is in the chat. And Monty slipped one in. You lucky Monty. You lucky Monty, because you heard the wrap up, right? Sometimes, Karla, they just keep us here because they just want to continue on and continue on, because once this is over, what we've been told is the Sunday night blues come in. We don't want you to have any more Sunday night blues where you're dreading the next day.
Aww.
Right? Like, get into some, if you still have to work, Get into something that you love, that brings you joy, or at least the place that you're doing it brings you joy. Listen, let me tell you, what is true in America in corporate culture is not necessarily true, or higher ed is not necessarily true around the world, right? The way you get treated at your job, having to put on that face, having to put on that armor, you will not necessarily have to do that or to the same extent in another
Right.
country, even if it's for the same company, because they have adopted the culture where they're at.
Right.
So when if time on if the day is from 8 to 5, at 5 o'clock people are leaving. Not talking about why are you leaving so early.
Right. And by the way, you're in some places you're leaving and going straight to happy hour with the rest of your team.
There you go. There you go. Please share if aware of countries with visa options when you have a few years worth of income in savings, but no pension or proof of remote job income. So, Monty, here in Portugal, for instance, it is the equivalent of Portuguese minimum wage per year. So the first visa that you can get for residency under the D7 is for 2 years. If you have 2 years of their minimum wage saved up, you will be good to go. Okay. And their minimum wage, I just say to be safe because the dollar is devaluating every day. Let's just say $1,100 per month. Okay. Because they get paid in euros. So that's what you need. And I'm sure that there are similar things in other countries. Not all. Not all. Like Switzerland, they don't need you.
Nope.
And right, like if you don't have $100,000 coming in,
Now we bother.
they don't want you.
Don't come over here.
They don't want you.
Don't come over with all your baggage.
Yeah, but there are a lot of visas where the income piece, like even Mexico, the income piece is savings or income. So we got permanent residency in Mexico because between the income, which did not meet their criteria, but our savings met their criteria. So the two of them put together, she's like permanent residency, even though we were only applying for temporary. So, so yeah, money in the bank will work.
One of the things I wanted to mention, because we've been getting a lot of questions on it, or a lot of concerns, when you put in for residency for different countries and they give you the residency, that it's not citizenship. You do
Right.
not have to revoke your American citizenship. We don't advise, giving up your American citizenship. You get residencies. You can buy property in some places. You have to check and see where you choose to go if it's that way. But you can buy property. You can do all kinds of stuff. A lot of times you can't vote because you're not a citizen, but you are on a path to citizenship if you want it. But you do not have to give up your citizenship, because we got a lot of people in our chats and questions. Well, I
Yes.
don't know. Will I have to give up my? No, you don't.
You don't. You
But
don't.
I know somebody that did give up their
Yeah.
citizenship.
Yeah, we do.
But it was beneficial to them too.
Revoking your, go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing to consider is if you are eligible for dual citizenship, get that. If you,
Choices, baby.
Yeah.
right, options, choices. Some countries will go as far back as your grandparents to give you eligibility.
Yes.
Based on whatever other criteria they may have.
Yeah.
Permanent residency also, sometimes when you go, permanent residency gives you the next level of access. So sometimes you don't have access to the public health care system, but when you become a permanent resident, you now do.
Right.
Right.
So again, it doesn't hurt if you're eligible to do that.
Yeah.
Some countries are more open, some processes are longer and shorter. And like I said before, even on a sponsored visas, there are countries that your sponsored visas after working there a certain period of time opens you up to get permanent residency.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Here in Portugal, once you have temporary residency, you qualify for the public healthcare system, which, unlike the public healthcare system in the United States, is actually excellent. Sometimes, so we maintain private health insurance, which costs us $1,800 per year. And the older you are, the more expensive it is. If you have pre-existing, it's more expensive, et cetera, et cetera. So per year. And we will maintain that. One, we don't want to be a burden on their system. We are guests in this country.
Right.
But why do we feel more at home here? So Auntie Lou says Carla is a wealth of information and resources. She is changing lives. Woo!
Thank you.
She didn't pay him. She did not pay Auntie Lou to say that. Okay. Did you use a facilitator for your Mexican residency? Okay, we're getting a little off topic, but that's fine, Jeanette. So I DIY'd it on the American side, and then I used Sonia Diaz out of San Miguel de Allende. Sonia Diaz out of San Miguel de Allende for the other side, for the side when you go to get your card. Okay. Last question about how long did it take for you to adjust to your new country? That's a good question, Rena. We'll answer, but let's let the pro answer first because we have only lived in 2 countries, 2.5.
It's varied. I would say when I first did this, which was the UAE, probably took me about 3 to 4 months to get acclimated. I would credit some of that to the fact that I grew up as a child in another country and I kept going between the Jamaica, the United States, and sometimes spending summers in Canada. So I was accustomed to borders and transition and those kinds of things. Most countries, it takes me about 3 months to acclimate. However, the acclimation process is ongoing. There's this little thing called culture shock, and it can happen at any point in time. You could be in a country a year and then it kicks in. And so one of the things I tell folks, and it's something often overlooked, people not planning for the culture shock, the adjustment. And you need to plan for that. You need to have coping skills, strategies, things in your toolbox to adjust to the things you may see, hear, understand that are different. And just to put a plug in there, I have a course for that.
There you go.
Good.
That literally puts you through the coping and adjusting process and things for you to think about, whether you are working abroad or whether you're just abroad in general. And that goes for your family as well. And realize that if you're with the family, you may be going through culture shock at different periods of time. Mom may be going through it. One parent may be going through it now. The kids may go through it later. The other parent may go. So it could be an ongoing cycle for a period of time, 6 months to a year, depending on if it's a family, who's going through it when. But it is something you should think about. You should plan for. It is very important to learn how to adjust.
Yeah. Truly, truly. And that was a ramp up to this next question. What was your biggest culture shock in Portugal? So, interestingly, I'm a researcher. So anything that I would have thought was like, why do they do it that way? I already knew about and decided that wasn't that important in my life. So there are a lot of things that happen here in Portugal that we would consider a little old-fashioned in the way they handle things. Same in Mexico. Some things that should be simple, that should just be a quick online thing. You have to show up in person with paper, etc. I knew all of that, and so I did not have expectations that it would be any different. I think being Black in America like lowers your expectations for stuff. You're like, I'm not expecting to be treated like a queen. I'm not expecting them to say, oh, she's here, now we can get on with our lives. Like, I never expect any of that. So I don't think I've had any culture shocks. I already knew that the fish here look at you, and that's another thing. Like, if you've never traveled out of the United States, start there.
Mm-hmm.
Start there. Don't jump into a move, unless it's like the UK. That's easy.
Australia.
Australia. That's easy. Any place where they speak a different language, and like the southern part of Europe has a very kind of um, siesta type of attitude, like, only the cars on the road are in a hurry, but nothing else is too much in a hurry. It's life, relax, it's going to happen. Yeah. Don't worry about it, rush. Right? No rush. So, like, how long did it take us to get the check when we went to lunch? Like, you could literally sit at a table for 5 hours, and they'll just keep bringing you water if you pay for it or whatever, and you may never get the check. So, so you have to live in Portugal for 5 years before you are eligible for citizenship. We plan to be here for the 5 years to get that passport. So, and you have to pass a language test to get the passport as well. So be here, keep your nose clean, live here the required amount of time, take the class, the government class for free, or take the test. And we get Portuguese. We become Portuguese. Yay. So, and I have to say, Carla, that lockdown is what changed things, right? Because we were planning for this 2025, 2026, something like that. But I felt like I'm not this is the analogy I gave last night. This is what the lockdown did. I felt like I'm not afraid to get into an elevator, but I get fearful and anxious if it gets stuck. And that's how I felt. I felt like I was in a stuck elevator, like normally things like it's cool. I can stick it out. But now you're telling me I have to stay? I can't go. Shoot. Nah. I want options. And if you are legal residents, they will let you in. History says they will let you in. Now, tomorrow's tomorrow. But my thoughts are, you're a legal resident, they've got to let you into your home. So right now we have legal residency in the United States because we're citizens, and in Mexico and in Portugal. Do you have any thoughts on Belize? And then we're going to let y'all go for real.
I have not been to Belize. What little I know is more from my reading. So it tends to be more Caribbean oriented. In nature, definitely an up and coming country. I've heard Belize pop up on a few people's radars.
Yeah.
I think, again, take a visit. Don't do what I do. I moved to all my countries without visiting. I recommend, if you have the opportunity to visit a country. Now, visit and live in are two different things, but visit allows you to open your eyes to what the country is. And especially if you choose to go off not the touristy path while you are visiting, it definitely gets to open your eyes up to what reality is, what is the local perspective, if you choose to do that. So that would be my thought.
We did 2 videos, y'all. One was specific to Portugal about the difference between a vacation and a scouting trip. And then we did one that was, basically what to do when you're on a scouting trip. We have a scouting trip checklist, and like Carla said, you got to start with your purpose, what you need your country to have, and then what you would like your country to have, and make sure 90 to percent of your needs, or as much as your needs that you need to feel comfortable and happy and joyous are there, because it can become very emotional. Oh, but it's pretty. Oh, I can forgive that. I can forgive this. I can forgive that. And then you turn around 3 months later, like, I got to get the hell up out of here. Right? So you do not want that to be your thing. Is there lower incidence of high blood pressure in these countries with more siestas and less urgency? Maybe not with the people who are used to it, but with us, yes. Yes. Like, for Portuguese folks, I don't know statistically if they necessarily have lower per capita rate of high blood pressure or not.
Google it.
You can Google it. I do know the medication's a lot less expensive than it is in the
A
States.
whole lot.
Yeah. So once again, thank you all. This is Our Black Utopia. Hit that like button, please. If you like this, this helps the algorithm. Show it to more people. Share this information with a friend. We're on a mission, y'all. We are on a mission because we do not like the news that we are getting from the US. We don't. We want this. You get one life. One life. It's not a dress rehearsal. This is a take. And there's a whole big old world out there to explore, to enjoy, to experience. So take the opportunity to open your mind. And if it's the job that you need, we've got the woman for you. Sitting right here. Her information is in the description below. All right. Also, our Ready to Retire toolkit and our scouting trip list. All of that information is in the description below. So you all know that we go live every other Thursday and every Sunday at 3:30 Eastern time. And so we will see you next week.
See ya, buddy.
See ya.
Bye. Thank